Russia and Belarus have launched joint military drills that are being watched nervously by some of their neighbours. The exercises are called Zapad, or West 2025, will run until Tuesday. They come just days after a Russian drone incursion into Polish airspace this week, which has stoked already heightened NATO concerns about the threat from Russia. The Kremlin has dismissed fears over the exercise as emotional overload. But Moscow did use similar drills to help launch its full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. Ryhor Astapenia is director of the Belarus initiative at Chatham House. That's a think tank based in London. He joins us from Warsaw. Welcome to DW. So we have Belarus and Russia carrying out these Zapad exercises, and it happens at regular intervals, and it's happened for many years. What do this year's drills tell us about the state of their relationship?
This exercise happened every 4 years, and Belarus and Russia alternated as primary hosts of this exercise. And this exercise usually shows us some differences in the relations between Belarus and Russia and the West. And this year, once again, we see that actually Belarus and Russia, or more specifically Lukashenko and Putin, have very good relations. Economic relations between Belarus and Russia are very good, but still countries have different security priorities. And you clearly see that Russia is more interested in escalation, like Putin's ambition is to destroy Ukraine, conquer West, etc., while Lukashenko's ambitions are not so great, right? So he's not interested in escalation. And that is why during these drills, you see that Lukashenko is trying to de-escalate, to make this exercise less significant in terms of personnel and in terms of danger that they present for neighbors.
Right, it's interesting you say that, because initially Belarus had said that part of these exercises would take place on the border with NATO and would involve 13,000 Belarusian troops, and those plans ended up being scaled back. Is that because of what you're saying there? He doesn't want to make a big thing of this?
Yes, definitely. That Lukashenko's regime is not interested in escalation in relations with the West. And what matters also that actually Lukashenko's regime and Trump administration are currently conducting a few negotiations about regional security, about political prisoners, about economic sanctions, etc. That is why it doesn't make any sense for the Lukashenko's regime to escalate or to show that he's very firmly stand with Putin's Russia. That is why Lukashenko is trying to distance himself and distance Belarus as well, and to show that, well, it's open to negotiations with the West.
Well, and we'll come to that. Tell us, first of all, about the Belarusian army. How does it rank in the region? Is it any good?
Well, it's a difficult question. I think that if you compare Belarusian army with the Russian army 4 years ago, it will definitely look like less significant, less important, etc. But considering that Russia has now to recruit almost anyone, so Belarusian army probably looks not so bad. So it definitely has some people, it still has some equipment, which from the Soviet Union as well. So I think that in general, it's not so great, but it's not so bad.
Despite the scaled-back nature of these exercises compared to previous years, some of Belarus's neighbours are worried. Poland, for instance, has closed its border with Belarus. Lithuania has boosted controls. What are they concerned about, and are those concerns well-founded?
Well, I think that Polish decision to close the border is linked with the fact that actually there were some drones that flew to Poland from Russia through Ukraine and probably through Belarus as well a week ago or several days ago. So this is why we see that there are some concerns in Poland about these drills and about the regional security in general. And Polish government would like to show that they do have some concerns. And the Lithuanian government is doing pretty the same thing. But I guess more or less people understand that, well, these drills are not so significant and they're not so important, and probably they do not threat anyone.
Right. You made a really interesting point towards the start of our talk. You talked about Lukashenko essentially trying to renegotiate his relationship with Russia. And we saw this week Donald Trump's special envoy, John Cole, was in Belarus just ahead of these drills. What is it you think Mr. Lukashenko wants from the US?
Probably we should start from the point that actually it's not the first visit, right? So there were like 4, 5, 6 visits. Probably some of them were not public over the last 7 months. That is why we see that this is pretty dynamic relationship between Trump administration and Lukashenko's regime. And what both sides are trying to achieve is to have some kind of gradual improvement in relations between themselves. And what is Lukashenko is trying to achieve is to have some sanctions lifted and having some diplomatic relations restored. So I guess that their agenda is to have this gradual improvement. What the US administration is trying to achieve is actually a very tricky question. It's very difficult to answer. But I guess that their main idea behind this relations between Lukashenko and the US government is to have this gradual improvement and see what will happen next. Mm-hmm. In general, the very idea is to have some more opportunities in regional security to somehow to stop the war. And actually, Lukashenko's rhetoric about the war is pretty similar to Trump's rhetoric. So I think this is a thing that help both sides.
Right. You see, for those of us who don't study this closely, the impression is always given that Belarus and Russia and their two leaders are very close, very tight. Belarus is very much in the Russian bear hug. You seem to be saying that it wants to just loosen that grip a bit. So how close can Lukashenko move to the US without jeopardizing his relationship with Vladimir Putin?
I think that right now, Alexander Lukashenko is able to use the current situation that Donald Trump is trying to improve or to have good relations with the Russia's leadership. And that is why it is fine for Lukashenko as well to build relations with the Trump administration. And he's not in jeopardy. But in general, of course, every attempt to distance Belarus from Russia to the US is a tricky thing for the government in Minsk. And they would like to do that, but at the same time, they understand that they are still very connected to Russia, and Lukashenko's government is still a vassal government to the Russian government.
All right. Thanks for talking us through that. Ryhor Astapenia from Chatham House.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's get more on this from Natalia Smolentceva, who is following all this from our studio in Riga. Welcome, Natalia. Should we read anything into the timing of these drills just a couple of days after Russian drones were shot down in Polish airspace?
Well, these drills were obviously scheduled way before the drone attack happened or the drone incident took place. But one has to wonder whether this incident was a coincidence with happening at the same time or just shortly before the drills, Zapad 2025. These joint Russian-Belarusian exercises are actually happening every 4 years. The last ones has been in 2021, just before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and then 200,000 troops were employed in this exercise. This time, the amount of troops is smaller. We don't have exact numbers, but estimates that only several thousand troops are now there. Still, it's very worrisome for countries here in the Baltics and for the European Union and NATO. The main maneuvers are said to take place inside Belarus, deep inside the country, not on the border. And the objective of those military exercises is to improve interoperability between Russian and Belarusian troops. But politically, it is a big show of power of Russian and Belarusian power to the West and to NATO and to European Union, especially because one of the aims of this exercise is to test potential use of nuclear weapons and intermediate-range missiles, Oreshnik. And Oreshnik is capable of carrying nuclear warheads, I have to remind you. And also we have to remember that Russia has stationed its tactical nuclear weapons on the territory of Belarus in 2023. And last year it actually signed a treaty that guarantees security to Belarus. This includes possible use of nuclear weapons to repel aggression. And last but not least, some analysts say that the aim of this Zapad 2022 military exercise is to show that Russia is strong indeed and the war in Ukraine hasn't weakened it, hence the timing.
Well, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has described European concerns about these drills as emotional overload. Some might see that brushing aside of those concerns as an indication that they are in fact valid.
Well, Peskov repeatedly said that the drills were not aimed at any particular country and then other countries have nothing to worry. However, Europe and especially here Baltic states have every right to be concerned. Because in past Russia often used military drills as a preparation for real military aggression, like full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 followed the exercises in 2021. So NATO's eastern flank members Poland, Lithuania and Latvia are on high alert these days, especially after the drone incident. Following this, Poland actually closed its border with Belarus. Poland, Latvia and Lithuania also closed part of their airspace. And all these countries are conducting military drills these days as well, with special attention to Suwalki corridor. It's a stretch of land that connects Baltic states to the rest of Europe, and it's said to be one of the most vulnerable parts of NATO's eastern flank.
A brief word about the relationship between Russia and Belarus. How secure is that, given President Lukashenko's recent remarks that his main task is to stand with Trump?
Russia and Belarus are closest allies. They both militarily, politically and economically. However, in recent times, Belarusian leader Lukashenko has attempted to mend its relationship with the West, at least with the US. Just yesterday, we've seen 52 political prisoners released from Belarusian prisons and exchange for lifting US sanctions from national air carrier Belavia. Lukashenko has also attempted to position himself somewhat as a channel of communication between Washington and Moscow. He's pushing this narrative of de-escalation and seems to promise US to influence Putin's actions, because both leaders of Russia and Belarus are quite close indeed.
Right.
And these drills, apart from showcasing military power, may actually play a role in influencing these ties between Moscow, Minsk and Washington.
Okay, thanks for that, Natalia.
In Ukraine.
DW correspondent Natalia Smolentceva. Thank you so much.